And I'm live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the video. And today I'll be finishing up Ezekiel, reading chapters 45 through 48. And so that's pretty cool. That's his last day of Ezekiel because tomorrow that means I'll get started in Daniel. And the thing about Daniel, I just pretty recently, that's what we were talking about in our church camp and all that stuff. And Daniel is just a really cool Old Testament book. And so let's just get started in Ezekiel chapters 45. The sacred portion of the land. When you divide a land by lot as an inheritance to set aside a donation to the Lord, the holy portion of the land, 8 1/3 miles long and 6 2/3 miles wide, the entire region would be holy. In this area, there would be a square section and a sanctuary, 875 feet by 875 feet, 87.5 feet of open space all around it. From this holy portion, he will measure off an area 8 1/3 miles long and 3 1/3 miles wide, in which the sanctuary of the most holy place will stand. There will be a holy area in the land to be used by the priests who minister in the sanctuary, who will approach to serve the Lord. There will be a place for their houses as well as a holy area for the sanctuary. There will be another area, 8 1/3 miles long and 3 1/3 miles wide, for the Levites who minister at the temple. It will be their possession for the towns to live in, as property and city set aside an area 1 2/3 mile wide and 8 1/3 miles long, adjacent to the holy donation of the land. That would be for the whole house of Israel, and the prince will have the area on each side of the holy donation of the land, and the city's property, adjacent to the holy donation, and the city's property, stretching to the west on the west side and to the east on the east side. Its length will correspond to one of the tribal portions from the western boundary to the eastern boundary. This will be his land as a possession of Israel. And my princes will no longer oppress my people, but I give the rest to the house of Israel according to their tribes. This is what the Lord God says. You have gone too far, princes of Israel. Put away violence and oppression, and do what is just and right. Put an end to your evictions of this declaration of the Lord God. You are to have honest scales, honest dry measure, and honest liquid measure. The dry measure and the liquid measure will be uniform. The liquid measure container 5.5 gallons, and the dry measure holding half a bushel. The measurements will be in the tenth of the standard larger capacity measure. The shekel will weigh 20 gerahs. Your minnow will equal 60 shekels. The people's contribution to the sacrifices. This is the contribution you are to offer: 3 quarts from 5 bushels of wheat and 3 quarts from 5 bushels of barley. The quota of oil and measures equal 10 liquid measures in one standard larger capacity measure. Since 10 liquid measures are one standard larger capacity measure, and the quota of the flock is 1 animal out of every 200 from the water pastures of Israel, these are the grain offerings, burnt offerings, fellowship offerings to make atonement for the people. This is the declaration of the Lord God. All the people of the land must take part in the contribution for the prince in Israel. The burnt offerings, grain offerings, and drink offerings, and festivals, new moons, and Sabbaths, for all the appointed times in the house of Israel, will be prince's responsibility. He'll provide sin offerings, grain offerings, burnt offerings, fellowship offerings to make atonement on behalf of the house of Israel. This is what the Lord God says: in the first month, on the first day of the month, you are to take a young, unblemished bull to purify the sanctuary. The priest takes some of the blood from the sin offering and apply it to the temple's doorpost, 4 corners of the altar's ledge, and doorpost of the gate at the inner court. He will do the same thing on the 7th day of the month for everyone who sins unintentionally or through ignorance. This is the way you will make atonement for the temple. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, you are to celebrate the Passover, a festival of 7 days during unleavened bread will be eaten. On that day, the prince will provide a bull as a sin offering on behalf of himself and on the people of the land. During 7 days of the festival, he'll provide 7 bulls and 7 rams without blemish as a burnt offering to the Lord on each of the 7 days, along with male goats brought each day for sin offering. He will also provide a grain offering on half of the bushel per bull and of oil for every half bushel. At the festival that begins on the 15th day of the 7th month, he'll provide the same thing for 7 days. The same sin offering, burnt offerings, grain offerings, and oil. Chapter 46. Sacrifices at appointed times. This is what the Lord God says. The gates of the inner court that faces east is to be closed during the 6 days of work, but it will be open the Sabbath day and the open day of the new moon. The prince should enter the outside way of the gate's portico and stand on the gate's doorpost, while the priest sacrifice his burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. He'll bow and worship at the gate's threshold and then depart. but the gate is not to be closed until the evening. The people of the land will also bow and worship before the Lord at the entrance of the gate on Sabbaths and new moons. The burnt offering that the prince presents to the Lord the Sabbath day is to be a ram. The grain offerings will be a half a bushel to ram. The grain offerings and the lambs will be whatever he wants to give, as well as a gallon of oil for every half bushel. On the day of the new moon, the burnt offering is to be young, unblemished bull, as well as 6 lambs and a ram without blemish. He'll provide grain offerings, a half bushel with the bull, half bushel with the ram, and whatever he can afford with the lambs, together with a gallon of oil for every half bushel. The prince enters to go in the way of the gate's portico and go out the same way. When the people of the land come before the Lord at the appointed times, whoever enters by way of the north gate to worship is to go out by the way of the south gate. Whoever enters by way of the south gate is to go out by way of the north gate. No one may return through the gate which he entered, but is to go out by the opposite gate. When people enter, the prince will enter with them. And when they leave, he will leave. At the festivals and appointed times, the grain offering will be half a bushel with the bull, a bushel with the ram, and whatever he wants to give the lambs, along with a gallon of oil for every half bushel. And the prince makes a freewill offering, whether a burnt offering or fellowship offering, is a freewill offering, so the Lord, the gates that face east to open for him. He is to offer a burnt offering or fellowship offering just as he does on the Sabbath day. Then he'll go out and the gates to be closed after he leaves. He will offer an unblemished year-old male lamb just as a daily burnt offering to the Lord. He will offer it for every morning. You are also to prepare a grain offering every morning, along with 3 quarts to 1/3 of a gallon of oil to moisten the fine flour. A grain offering to the Lord. This is a permanent statute to be observed regularly. They'll offer the lamb, the grain offering, the oil every morning as a regular burnt offering. Transfer of royal lands. This is what the Lord God says. The prince gives a gift to each of his sons as their inheritance. It will belong to his sons. It will become their property by inheritance, but he gives a gift from his inheritance to one of his servants. It will become to that servant until your freedom. And I revert to the prince. His inheritance belongs only to his sons, it is theirs. The prince must not take any of the people's inheritance, evicting them from the property. He is to provide an inheritance for his sons, his own property, so that none of my people will be displaced from his own property. The temple kitchens. Then he brought me through the entrance cells on the side of the gate into the priest's holy chambers, which faced north. I saw a place there at the far western end. He said to me, "This is the place where the priests boil the guilt offerings, sin offerings, where they will bake the grain offerings so that they do not bring them into the outer court and transmit holiness to the people." Next, he brought me into the outer court and led me past its 4 corners. There are a separate court in each of its corners, and the 4 corners of the outer court were closed courts, 70 feet long by 52.5 feet wide. All 4 corner areas had the same dimensions. There was a stone wall around the inside of them, around the 4 of them, with ovens built at the base of the walls on all sides. He said to me, "These are the kitchens where those who minister at the temple will cook the people's sacrifices." Chapter 47, halfway through now. The life-giving river. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and there was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple towards the east. Where the temple faced east, the water was coming down from under the south side of the threshold of the temple, south of the altar. Next he brought me out by way of the north gate and led me around the outside of the outer gate and faced east. There was the water trickling from the south side. As the man went east with the measuring line in his hand, he measured off 1/3 of a mile and led me through the water. He came to my ankles, and he measured 1/3 of a mile and led me through the water. He came up to my knees. He measured 1/3 of a mile and led me through the water. He came up to my waist. Again, he measured 1/3 of a mile, and the river could not cross on foot, for water had risen. It was deep enough to swim in, a river that could not be crossed on foot. He asked me, "Do you see this, Son of Man?" Then he led me to the bank of the river. When I returned, I saw a very large number of trees along both sides of the river bank. He said to me, "This water flows out to the eastern region and goes down to Arabia. When it enters the sea of foul water, the water of the sea becomes fresh. Every kind of living creature that swarms will live where the river flows, and there will be a huge number of fish because the water goes there. Since the water will become fresh, there will be life everywhere the river goes. Fishermen will stand beside the En-Gedi to En-Eglam. These will become places where the nets are spread out to dry. The fish will consist of many different kinds of the fish of the Mediterranean Sea. Yet its swamps and marshes will not be healed. They'll be left for salt. All kinds of trees providing Food will grow along both banks and the river. Their leaves will not wither, and their fruit will not cause the water to come up in the sanctuary. Their fruit will be used for food and leaf for medicine. The borders of the land. So the Lord God says, "This is the border that you used to divide the land as inheritance to 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph received 2 shares, you inherit in equal portions, since I swore to give you your ancestors. So this land will fall to you as your inheritance. This will be a border of the land. On the north side will extend from the Mediterranean Sea by way of the Ethlon, Lebo, Math, and to Zedad, Beratha, and Zibram, which is between the border of Damascus and the border of Hamath, as far as Hazar Hatsikon, which is the border of Haran. So the border will run from Sea of Hazar Anan at the border of Damascus with the territory of Hamath in the north. This will be the northern side. On the east side, it will not run between Haran and Damascus along the Jordan, between Gilead and the land of Israel. We will measure it from the northern borders to the eastern sea. This will be the eastern side. On the south side, it will run from Tamar to the waters of nearby Kadesh and the brook of Egypt as far as Mediterranean Sea. This will be the southern side. On the west side of the Mediterranean Sea will be the border. The southern border is the points of Opposite Lebo. Math is to be the western side. You are to divide the land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. You'll allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and the aliens residing among you. You have fathered children among you. You'll treat them with the newborn Israelites among with you, and they'll be allotted inheritance among the tribes of Israel, whatever tribe the alien resides. You'll assign his inheritance there. This is a declaration of the Lord God. Chapter 48, the final chapter for today and of Ezekiel, the tribal allotments. Now these are the names of the tribes from the northern end along the road of Hethlon, to Lebo Hamath as far as Hazar Anan, the northern border of Damascus alongside Hamath, and extending from the eastern side to the sea. It'll be Dan, one portion. Next to the territory of Dan, from the east side to the west, it'll be Asher, one portion. Next to the territory of Asher, from the east side to the west, will be Naphtali, one portion. Next to the territory of Naphtali, from the east side to the west, will be Manasseh, one portion. Next to the territory of Manasseh, from the east side to the west, will be Ephraim, one portion. Next to the territory of Ephraim, from the east side to the west, will be Reuben, one portion. Next to the territory of Reuben, from the east side to the west, will be Judah, one portion. Next to the territory of Judah, from the east side to the west, will be the portion you donate to the Lord, 81 miles wide, as long as the tribal portions from the east side to the west. The sanctuary will be in the middle of it. The special portion you donate to the Lord will be 8 1/3 miles long and 3 1/3 miles wide. This is the holy donation will be set apart for the priests alone. It will be 8 1/3 miles long on the northern side, 3 1/3 miles wide on the western side, and 3 1/3 miles wide on the eastern side, and 8 1/3 miles long on the southern side. The Lord's sanctuary will be in the middle of it. Consecrated priests, sons of stock, the kept in charge, not go astray, and the Levites did what the Israelites went astray. It was a special donation for them out of the holy donation of land, most holy place adjacent to the territory of the Levites. Next to the territory of the priests, the Levites will have an area 8 1/3 miles long and 3 1/3 miles wide. Total length will be 8 1/3 miles, and the width 3 1/3 miles. They must not sell or exchange any of it. They must not transfer the choice part of the land, for it is holy to the Lord. The remaining area, 1 2/3 miles wide and 8 1/3 miles long, will be for common use by the city, both resident and open space. The cities will measure it. These are the city's measurements: 1 1/2 miles on the north side, 1 1/2 miles on the south side, 1 1/2 miles on the east side, 1 1/2 miles on the west side. The city's open space will extend 425 feet to the north, 425 feet to the south, and 425 feet to the east, and 425 feet to the west. Remainder of the length alongside the holy donation will be 3 1/3 miles to the east and 3 1/3 miles to the west. It will run alongside the holy donation. Its produce will be food for the workers in the city. The city's workers from all the tribes of Israel will be cultivated, and the entire donation will be 8 1/3 miles and by 8 1/3 miles. You are to set apart the holy donation along the city property as a square area. The remaining area on both sides of the holy donation and city property will be along the prince. He will own the land adjacent to the tribal portions next to 8 1/3 miles of the nation as far as the eastern border, and next to the 8 1/3 miles of the nation as far as the western border. The holy donation and sanctuary of the temple in the middle of it, except for the Levitical property and city property in the middle of the area, belong to the prince. The area between the territory of Judah and that of Benjamin will belong to the princes. The rest of the tribes from the east of the west will be Benjamin, and one portion next to the territory of Benjamin. From the east side of the west will be Simon, one portion next to the territory of Simon. From the east of the west will be Issachar, one portion next to the territory of Issachar. From the east to the west will be Zebulun, one portion next to the territory of Zebulun. From the east side to the west will be Gad, and one portion next to the territory of Gad towards the south side. The border will run from Tamar to the waters of Maria, Bath, Kadesh, the brook of Egypt, and out to the Mediterranean Sea. This is the land they are to allot as inheritance to Israel's tribes, and that is on their portions. This declaration of Lord God. The new city. These are the exits to the city on the north side, which measures 1.5 miles. There will be gates facing north. The gates of the city be named for tribes of Israel. One gate Reuben, one the gate of Judah, one the gate of Levi. On the east side, which is 1.5 miles, there will be 3 gates. One the gate of Joseph, one the gate of Benjamin, and one gate of Dan. On the south side, which measures 1.5 miles, there will be 3 gates. On the one Zebulun, on the west side, which is 1.5 miles, there will be 3 gates. On one gate of Gad, and one gate of Asher, and one gate of Naphtali. Then the perimeter of the city will be 6 miles, and the city from that day on will be the Lord is there. Time to put my shark there. Thank you so much for watching along with me through Ezekiel. So I'm just going to go through the beginning and summarize it. So it's kind of like there's a summary in my Bible. So I'm just going to kind of read through that. Summary of Ezekiel is that it's built around 3 visions of God Ezekiel received. First, revealed God's glory. In the second, of God's judgments. The third, of God transformed people and temple. In chapters 1 through 3 presents Ezekiel's call and commission. Chapters 4 through 24 relate the judgment on Judah and the reasons for it. In these prophetic declarations, Ezekiel demolished the 4 pillars in which the people had based security: an immutable and unconditional covenant, eternal and unconditional title to the land, an irrevocable line of Davidic kings in Jerusalem as the eternal dwelling place to God. Chapters 25 through 32 contain oracle against 7 Gentile nations. Chapter 33 through 44 prophesied the restoration of Israel and the land, a restored Davidic kingship, and a new temple to which God's glory returns. So, like a big picture would be, it's like from the exile of Babylon, Ezekiel's stunning visions and startling symbolic acts were prophecies in the Israelites to teach God's sovereign plan over them in the history of his kingdom, so that they would know that I am the Lord. That's from chapter 6, verse 10, where it says they'll know that I'm the Lord. And so it's all for Ezekiel. Thanks for making it through with me. I'm so excited to see you guys tomorrow in Daniel. So we've had a great day so far. Have a great day. Remember, God truly loves you, and goodbye.